I love her more. Wingardium Leviosa. Off you go then.
Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Oh, it's not working. I'm trying to make these books levitate or fly. Well, anyway, since we're up to it, let's introduce the books for today. We call it The Treasures of Power. Though, actually, these are the priciest books in my list. So, today, I'm going to introduce more of the Harry Potter series, which I have introduced during my first videos a few months ago. Um, Maybe last month I sold the Order of Phoenix, first edition, 2003. It was the yellow one. And I didn't know it was the first edition, so I was just wondering, why is this book so old? The condition was really good, almost like brand new. So somebody purchased it, and then, okay, good. I priced it at around $10. But suddenly, when I was looking at the internet, I saw some people selling it as high as $2,000, between $600 to $2,000. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? So after that, I started to find all the first edition books. Um, Luckily, I found one, Deathly Hallows. This one I discussed already in my previous videos. And also, last week we went to the bookshop. I found another first edition. Now, this one is, I'm really intrigued. Um, this one is the Goblet of Fire. No, the Order of the Phoenix also. This is the sequel to the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Goblet of Fire. I was surprised, oh, this first edition also. And then I realized, I think the yellow one, the Order of Phoenix yellow one, is for Britain. And this one is for the American release, first edition. Some of the books here, oh, this one's the Goblet of Fire. And this one was this first edition book, I guess. It says here 2000. First published in Great Britain in 2000. This is a Great Britain book. I see. Oh, first edition. Covered all of this because of the condition of the books deteriorates easily. So I have to sell this in a very, like, almost brand new way. This is a first edition book also. The Half-Blood Prince. And again, the Half-Blood Prince. I'm guessing this is the British and this is the American, I guess. But both are hardcover, first edition, together with the others hardcover, first edition. What was they saying in that? The Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Yeah. What? Lacarnum inflammare. It's like giving some diarrhea to someone. Anyway, so look at this one. This is I saw this a few months ago. Soman Chainani, School for Good and Evil. His books were released more than 10 years ago. I think it was 2012, 2013. And they were bestsellers. And all his books, maybe nine copies, nine edition, sold around almost 4 million copies. It's a mainstay in the New York bestseller. And I bought two of these separately. There were two more. I wanted to buy it. It's a little pricey compared to the other books that I was buying. And when I came back to the bookstore, the copy suddenly deteriorated, so I hesitated to buy it. It's a good thing I was able to buy these copies, and then I covered them with the cling fling, cling pling. Well, speaking of magics and fantasy, there is the last vampire. Sorry, the last werewolf. by Glenn Duncan. I bought this book together with the Empire of the Vampire by Christoph, which was published in 2021. Uh, that book I sold last week at a very cheap price also. I'm guessing it was 10 bucks, but it's a first edition book. So these are the 10 years ago J.K. Rowling. Usually these will be the first. These are the ones that you'll find in the bookstore recently if you're going to buy Harry Potter, especially if it's from a non-native English-speaking country. They'll put the TOEIC score here, and if you want to read this to practice TOEIC comprehension, maybe they put the TOEIC score, your level here. It means if your level is like, I think it was around 900, you could basically understand this book. So I wanted to talk about the Games of Thrones and Tolkien's books, but I couldn't get a copy of the Games of Thrones. I saw it 5 months ago. It was brand new, but it was in a second-hand bookstore, and I wanted to compare the English that Tolkien and Game of Thrones author who's that Martin George Martin, because he had the same name with the Beatles producer. Uh, so when George Martin, the Beatles producer, died a few years ago, many Games of Thrones fans thought it was the George Martin who wrote the GOT, but they just had the same name. Speaking of George Martin, he was considered one of the fifth Beatle because he helped the Beatles in doing a lot of the more classical works. John and Paul are really good composers, and George also. And George Martin actually brought in the orchestra, I think together with Brian Epstein, Brian Epstein, not Jeffrey Epstein, sorry. Anyway, the manager of the Beatles, they like classical music, they're not into pop actually. So this blend of rock and pop together with classical music was a genius made by the Beatles during George Martin. Anyway, let's go back to vampires. So yeah, I bought this one, the werewolf, the last werewolf, together with the vampire, Empire of the Vampire. And do you remember this? Stephen Meyer, New Moon. We are talking about Twilight. These was very popular more than a decade ago. I remember. I think I watched 3 of the movies. My sister likes those movies, so we watched it at home. I think a few years ago before the pandemic. And speaking of vampire novels, it's first vampire movie I watched, aside from Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was I wasn't allowed to go to because I was still a Shogaku grade school student, is The Interview of the Vampire by Anne Rice, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Antonio Banderas and Christian Slater. That movie came out 32 years ago. Christine Dunst was 8 years old. I want more. Like that. Anyway, yeah, that was the first time I got interested into vampire movies and genre. And Tom Cruise was young, Brad Pitt was young, Banderas was young also. So these are the books that are on top of my list right now: Harry Potter, vampire book, 2 fantasy books by Soman Chanani, sorry. I hope I didn't mispronounce your name. And 1 werewolf, The Last Werewolf. So if you're interested in buying this, please leave a comment below so I can direct you to my online shop. These are, by the way, first edition books. So, Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Thank you for watching.